All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Hello. It's great to see all of your beautiful, smiling faces like Nan. Hello, Nan. How's it going out there? Joining us today, we have a guest because Nestle is still on vacation because some people get to do that apparently. Our guest is Natalia Reagan. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Peter recommended you.
Uh-oh.
He's like, you got to check out Natalia Reagan's channel. And so I did.
I'm sorry.
That's usually what I tell people when they
I'll send you a check later. Some reparations. Yeah, we got. Yeah.
Ooh, I hear weather occurring outside. So if I lose connection, that's why, because weather's happening in my area.
Where are you, Jackson? Are you in the Midwest?
Nope, I'm down south.
Where down south?
Shreveport, Louisiana.
Uh-oh, hold on. Oh my God, you're in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
My parents met in New Orleans.
That's about almost 6 hours south of me.
Okay.
Southeast, kind of, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, you get weather down there. We don't. I'm in Los Angeles, in Burbank, to be exact, and it's pretty much 75 and sunny 99.8% of the time. We're on fire, completely on. In fact, during the fires, we had this thing called the Watch Duty app, which is fantastic for alerting us about fires. But every Angelino has PTSD, and fire season is kicking up. And I mean, every time it goes off, we all kind of seize up. Yeah.
That's fair. We've just been getting, well, it's been pretty dry for the most part. We got a little bit of rain today. About 3 hours west of me is where the horrendous floods occurred in Texas. That's about 3 hours west. Yeah. So, yeah, so we've been getting, Smitty. Hello, Smitty. Welcome.
Hello, Smitty. I love that name.
So we've, not getting a lot of wet. When I was down in Baton Rouge for a couple of years, though, it seemed to rain, I think, a little bit every single day. Like, maybe it wouldn't even necessarily rain, it was just mist. And I hated that. It was gross. Like,
you're just wet all the time.
As a Louisianian, I was constantly moist. I was never not moist. And I'm like, I lived in Louisiana my whole life. And so to be moist all the time was gross. Didn't like it.
It's like New York in the summer or Central America all the time, because that's where I studied spider monkeys. And, even in the dry season, you're moist because it's just so hot that you are schwitzing all day, every day. But during the wet season, like you said, it rains once a day, sometimes a little bit. Sometimes it's torrential and, flash floods are a problem, and you gotta get to high ground.
Yes, and I do want to talk about that because that is super cool. So, you have an intro video that was very fun. I started because I have one, but it's just like a video I did a number of years ago, and it's fine, but it's not like an intro to what my channel is. But I was watching yours and I was immediately enraptured.
Oh, thank you. It worked. Yes.
Yes, I was drawn in. I'm curious. So did Colbert ever reach back out?
You know what? I am deeply disappointed to say no. Well, although I will say this, I had and this is where it gets kind of funky. I had a PR person that was helping me out during that whole butt week thing. So I guess I should tell the people at home just what he is referring to is I made a video about the evolution of boobs that, it didn't go viral, but it got me on the Today Show talking about America's obsession with flapdoodles with Ann Curry. It was a very slow news week. And I also admitted on national television that I watched softcore porn as a child. Yes. I have not been asked back on the Today Show. However, a couple days later, shocker, right? My mom was like, what's Skinamax? And I said, shh, just let it happen. But a couple days later, or no, I think the next day, a friend of mine in Boston, because this is 2011, so a friend of
Mhm.
mine in Boston was watching Colbert and said, "Oh my God, they just referenced your show." And I watched it, and Colbert was saying, NBC, I saw you did a thing about boobs, but what about butts? He said NBC stands for no butt coverage. And so this is back again before iPhones had video. So I had to put together a skeleton crew and shoot a rebuttal. Butt week number 1, no butts, no glory. Exactly. And then butt week number 2 with Liberty and Just Ass for All, featuring my grandpa, my dad, and my brother. And quick shout out, my grandpa passed away on Sunday, but he was one of the best parts of the butt week video, talking about his butt fetish. And unfortunately, Colbert, and we made a plea to Colbert to really do butt week. Go to Butts County, Georgia, and have a week of butt celebration, colonoscopies, prostate exams, 2 scoops of ice cream on a peach, just have a lot of fun with butt shaped foods and activities, and talk about what makes a human booty, because it all comes down to walking on 2 legs. Bipedalism is what led to this sweet peachy keister, this shelf like fanny, because non human primates do not have a tuchus like ours.
Yeah. That's well. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you didn't get that opportunity. That would have been great. But you know what? In fairness, of the 2 of you, only one of you has been canceled, and it's not you. So
Thank you.
I I think that must mean something.
That
So
must. And did you know? I mean, the show has gotten. I mean, the show is amazing, but I
yeah.
feel like now it's a step up. It's notched up, because he gives zero. Absolutely. I don't. Can I say the F word?
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
He gives zero fucks, and I love that. Late night hosts are coming in to support him and are like, "Yeah, you want to come for us? Come for us." So
I think the only one of those I watch is John Oliver. I'm a religious John Oliver fanatic. Um,
the only religion you practice.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I can't say that on our show. Yes. So I, yes. So
Tell me
I
later.
do love. We'll save it for the after party. The John Oliver show. He's great. He's informed me on a lot of very important and weighty topics. Uh, but yeah. So in addition, you do acting.
Yeah.
You still do acting?
It's funny. I do and I don't. I mean, I do. I go out for auditions still. A friend of mine actually just asked me to play the lead in I guess a sizzle reel for a movie he's trying to get off the ground. Which is kind of funny because it's like I don't generally get asked as much as I used to. But I go out for commercial auditions here and there.
Hmm.
Funny enough, I don't have a theatrical agent technically, but I'm kind of hip pocketed by this one agent who will occasionally send me auditions. And although last year, this is when you realize you need new headshots, because she sent me out, or I got a script. She sent me it was a full script. It was like a Hallmark Christmas movie where I would have
Mm-hmm.
been the lead. And it was like, whoa, that's a meaty piece of, a role. And
Absolutely.
I look at the script and it's like a 30-year-old who is a pop star dating an NFL player. Does that sound familiar? Like basically Taylor
Oh
Swift.
yeah,
And
you're
I'm
right.
just like,
Yes.
I have passed that time. I was like, oh, look, we need to get new headshots. I cannot play. I mean, God bless you that you think I can play 30, but we're not doing that. And the next role was 29. And I was like, okay, we got it. We're going backwards. We got to keep going forward. Cause I'm definitely now, I get soccer mom stuff too. Like I've played soccer moms in commercials and things. So,
Yeah.
but I love going out for auditions.
I
It
mean, hey,
is
John
fun.
Travolta played a teenager, in high school. So
Right? I mean, look at 90210. I mean, Gabrielle Cardieres was, I think, like in her early 30s when she was playing her character on the show. So, I mean, you
yeah.
never know. And when coming up as an actor, I used to do extra work. And for years, I did 18 to look younger, where they want you to be over 18 because you can work adult hours, but they want you to look like you're in high school. So I did a
Right.
lot like Freaks and Geeks. I was in the pilot and all throughout the first season.
Oh, I
Yeah,
saw
which was
that.
right. And it was great because when we did the pilot, I mean, you had Busy Phillips, you had Seth Rogen, you had Jason
Mm-hmm.
Segel, you had, Judd Apatow, who was, I mean, had done some things, but he was still up and coming. Paul Feig, Linda Cardellini, all these people that were nobodies really, because they were kids. We all were
Right.
kids. We all were about the same age. And it was really cool because there was no, the hierarchy didn't really exist because again they weren't famous yet. James
Sure.
Franco, who was kind of taking pretty big fall from grace
Yeah.
now, but like used to come and look at, I used to draw. I did a lot of diet pills back then. So I would draw this crazy type of art, that looked very psychedelic looking. And looking back, I was like, it's probably because you were taking, speed. But he would be like, oh, those are so cool, like we were buds because there was no
That's great.
sort of sense of we're better than you, no self-righteousness. And everybody was just super cool with each other. But yeah, it was funny because you'd have kids doing like playing sophomores in high school, but they were 30. They just looked really
Right.
young. Yeah.
Yeah, I've well at first, yeah, I did watch at least part of Freaks and Geeks because it would come on. That'd be one of the late night shows on. Sorry, when I say this, coming on Teen Nick, so it'd be
Yeah.
late night for that, and so I would watch that, and as back when I watched all those, and yeah, I liked it. I thought it was fun, and I think it's also interesting to me that like the industry, at least from what I've seen, it seems like the industry has moved away from the like more getting 30-year-olds to play 18-year-olds and more towards like getting a 21-year-old to play an 18. Is that true, or is that just my perception? Or
I mean, from what I can tell, because I'm not so much doing that as much, but yes, I mean, when you see people like Jenna Ortega, I don't know how old she is, but I believe she's much closer to teen years than she is
Mhm.
to 35, playing Wednesday and things like that. I feel like we're seeing more younger folks getting those parts,
Yeah,
yeah, because I mean, if you watch old like high school shows, they do. If you look at them and you're like, that man has a full beard. Although I will
right.
say that I look at my dad's high school yearbooks from the 70s and everybody, I swear to God, like every man had a full beard. Every man looked like they were 45, right? But they were
Yes.
16. It was very confusing. So
Yeah, I've oh, I work at an aquarium. Yep, I just doxed myself. But
that's so
I live
cool.
in Shreveport. I wonder which aquarium I work at. It's the Dallas World Aquarium. No, the uh, but like yeah, sometimes we have like summer campers, and we're like, are we sure this kid is 10
Is
years
this a
old?
parent or is this a
Right.
child? I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like I used to teach at university and people, it was a compliment, but I remember it was actually this one particular time was a little scary because a student followed me up a few flights of stairs to ask me out. And I was like, I said, I could tell you this guy was a student. I was like, are you a student here? And they're like, yes. I said, I am a teacher here and thank you very much. But no, and don't follow girls upstairs. It was one of those moments where, he was
A
very nice
teachable
and
moment.
a teachable moment, it was like, the more like the after school special. But yeah, it is interesting when you have to kind of think about that. I work at Griffith Observatory, so like the aquarium, although I'm rarely there. I haven't even finished my shadow shifts and I've been there almost 2 years, which is embarrassing to admit.
So
But
what
I'm
is
very,
that?
huh?
What is the Griffith Observatory?
So the Griffith Observatory it's an observatory here in Los Angeles, overlooking all of Los Angeles. It is, our big one of our big draws, but it has, a beautiful Zeiss telescope. They have many telescopes on the lawn every night, but they have I believe it's the largest picture in the world. It's called oh my God, I just blinked out. Again, I'm never there. It's like the big picture. I think it is called the big picture, but it's basically a huge picture of multiple, basically millions of galaxies in one
Okay.
picture. And there's the historic level has a Foucault's pendulum. They have a
Nice.
celestat. They have a Tesla coil. So it's a really great place. If anybody has an opportunity to go to Los Angeles, please, by all means, go to Griffith Observatory. I probably will not be there because I never am. I need to change that. I do like working there, but it's one of those part-time jobs that we have the kids there. Like you said, we do what is it called? A school program. So I'll probably be doing that coming up this fall. I'll have to keep my eyes out for kids that look like their parents.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. I had to look, I had to Google it, to Google it, in Los Angeles because I am familiar. There is an observatory I'm familiar with in Los Angeles County. That is the Mount Wilson
Mount
Observatory.
Wilson. Yeah.
There's a really good book that I have up there on my shelf. I'd have to take my headphones off to reach it. It's titled "The War on Science" by Sean Otto. It's a phenomenal book, one of the best narratives of the history of science I've ever read. And he talks about Hubble and his students there at
Yeah.
the Mount Wilson Observatory, and how one of them had a fling with Amy Semple McPherson, who is this firebrand preacher from the
Whoa.
early 1900s. So she was like, you know, fire and brimstone, always preaching against like non-believers and whatnot. And then she disappeared. You can read about her case. She disappeared for like
Wow.
a few weeks. No one knew where she went. She was supposed to be in Arizona, and then she turns up in like
Was it
northern
aliens?
Mexico.
Okay.
It could have been. She
Could have
claims it
been.
was cartels,
Oh,
but one of
of
the
aliens.
people who it, you know what? Yes, actually. But well, I guess not. It wouldn't be in their country. I guess they would be not aliens there. But they or she claimed it was cartels that like stole her and got her across the border. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody inside Mount Wilson alleges that she was there having a tryst with one of the physicists there, which I think is quite funny.
Oh, that is
Anyway,
funny. Wow, that's wild. I love those kind of sort of, clandestine affairs that you're like, wait, what? How did this? That's strange.
yeah, and to bring it home, something's never changed. I mean, there was just a couple weeks ago a guy, like a physicist, astrophysicist dude who was caught at the that concert with his
Oh, you're talking
his
about
like
oh the
secretary or
well,
whatever.
he was just the CEO. I think it's just yeah, right? Because he's the CEO of Astronomer. The
Yeah.
is he
Okay,
an
that's what it was.
astrophysicist for real?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe
No,
just
no,
the
no.
CEO of the
But he's
company.
he's making claims. How do you be
Maybe.
the CEO of Astronomer and not be?
Maybe I don't know. I don't remember. I could have gotten the things mixed up, but I thought that
That's
story was
because
very
you have
funny.
a life, Jackson. Everybody who got obsessed with that.
Ah, I find that. I mean, I was reading this right before we started the show. I don't know if I.
Oh, okay.
I would
How
have.
is it? Is
Very
it
good.
very good?
It's extremely good. Of the books I'm reading right now, it's All the Shah's Men by Stephen Kinzer.
Hmm.
Just right here. This is a really good book. Pretty short. It's about how we overthrew Iran.
Okay, I'm gonna
Um,
write it down. I'm taking notes.
then there's that one by Greg Grandin, which is America. And then the other book I'm reading, I think I can get that one off the shelf. There you go. Is this one? Uh,
Crimes Against Humanity.
yeah, it's
Who's that by?
it's a little thick.
Wow.
This is by
It's a beef.
Jeffrey Robertson. So he's I believe he's either British or Canadian. But it's really good. My reading list is very dour. I wouldn't recommend. I mean, the books I read are very interesting, but
You mean the current news isn't dour enough for you? I'm kidding.
fair and balanced.
I guess you're keeping with the theme. You know what I mean? Like why you're not escaping into escapism. You're just sticking with reality.
Well, yeah, it's more like I'm trying to understand why things are as horrible as they are right now, and it's like, oh, hey, here's the list of reasons why. But anyway,
Oh, may I suggest? I don't have it. I have it on an audiobook, but Soldiers and Kings by Jason DeLeon. If you want to know how we got here, Jason DeLeon is a wonderful anthropologist. I highly recommend having him on. I need to have him on my show too. He is a
okay,
friend, but he is an anthropologist that has been doing ethnographic, basically studies of people cross, of human trafficking. So people coming across the border, being brought across the border, and why there's a huge uptick. He talks about, the history of Central America and Honduras in particular, and why people are, have been coming through the way they have, and how that sort of
yes,
prevention by deterrence that was brought about in the 90s has led to a lot of deaths of people in the desert because
yep,
immigrants are forced to go through the Sonoran Desert, which is highly dangerous. I grew up, I've said this in my own live stream. My parents worked full time. I had a nanny from El Salvador who was amazing. Her name was Maria, and my parents sponsored her to get her green card. But I remember one summer she'd go home to El Salvador, and she came back with 3 daughters, and they all were teenagers, and I was like 7, so I just idolized them. I thought they were the coolest. They had the best hair, the best music, the best clothes. They were just so hip to me. And years later, I remember asking my mom, how did she get them into the country? And she just said, oh, the trunk of her car. Like, I mean, she acknowledged it was wild, but like I just had no idea. And what people go through to make sure that they escape. And by the way, I should also note this woman had 15 children. 6 of them died in the war in El Salvador, a war that
oof.
the US basically
Yeah,
created.
El
So
Salvadoran death squads. Yeah,
yep, yeah.
the right wing death squads. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually be. He would be
It's
a great person to have on. I
he's great.
recently read 2 books by Aviva Chomsky that are up there on the
Mm.
shelf. They're out of reach. I need to have it. I need to have this like right behind me so I can
I
be like,
know, right? I
actually,
know. All mine are back there too. I'm like, I want to go. I brought my skulls forward in case we want to talk
Oh,
skulls,
we
but
will talk anthropology.
I'll just
Absolutely.
randomly just throw us. Just anyway. No, but
Uh,
anyways, so Chomsky.
I have to ask about the skull. Yes,
Yeah.
Aviva Chomsky. I mean, I have a bunch of Noam Chomsky books. He's one of
Hmm.
my favorites. But Aviva Chomsky, his daughter, has also written a bunch of really good books. She wrote um, How Immigration Became Illegal, which is
Okay.
a large part, which is basically about the history of immigration laws in the U.S. So she talks about the relationship between this. She was kind of what got me because I'm zoology by background.
Hmm.
History, foreign affairs, all that's not my area. But I recently got into history, and so then I was reading. I've got a bunch of Chomsky stuff I've been reading, and then I was reading her books. So it's How Immigration Became Illegal. So she talks about the relationship of the Spanish speaking countries to our own, which is then why I saw America literally just came out like a few months ago,
I want
which
to
is why
look.
I got
Yeah, I
that
need
one.
to look that one. That one looks great.
And then the other one is They Take Our Jobs and 20 Other Myths About Immigration or something like that.
Okay.
Which is it just goes through and debunks all the different myths pushed by conservatives.
Talking points that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do a show called Survival of the Filthiest, a science comedy show, and my last show was in June, and it was before Pride. It was going to be Gays of Our Lives. It was all gay
Okay.
animals, but it was right when the ice raid started. The ice raid started a week before, and of course, I was out that weekend that they started, and I also had a gun, a Nerf, one of those dumb rubber bullet Nerf guns. They got me. They told me to pull onto a bridge, and then they blocked off the other side. And so I had a cop pointing a gun at me for like 20 minutes and a bunch of other people. So it was just one of those things where that was the start of the week. And so by the time, and then the No Kings March was the day after my show. So I just made sure
Mm.
that my show started off with, these are talking points that if you have any right wing, Republican, Christian conservative, family members, friends. A lot of the people I was talking to, it's preaching to the choir, but these are the talking points. Please use them. Take pictures of this, like the whole they don't pay taxes. And it's like, well, in 2022 alone, they paid $97 billion in taxes. And that was just in 20,
Hmm.
or they're taking the jobs and then who, actually does the farm work here.
They don't
All
want to
that
learn
kind of stuff.
English. They want to live in little, conclaves where everybody speaks Spanish and doesn't adhere to constitutional law. Nope, all lies.
All
All
lies.
lies.
All lies. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really not hard to dispel a lot of these myths. Like it's shockingly easy. I as a person who doesn't have a background really in history or sociology or whatever, when I'm reading these topics on like um, why is multiculturalism a good thing, or like what is the psychology of people who go on to engage in like terrorism and things like this, it's like it's shockingly easy to find resources on these things, but all you hear from right-wing news are just lies
Yeah.
about them. Like it's baffling to me. I did we on this channel we did like a 4 video arc about our little first foray into politics as bread tubers,
Oh,
so
cool. Yeah. That's
so,
awesome.
um and well, 3 of them did well. The last one didn't do well at all, but at any rate, yeah, it's very annoying, very frustrating to deal with these sorts of people. But yes, I would love to get him on. I would be
Yeah.
happy to reach out to him
Jason
and
Dillon, he's yeah, because we'll have to fight for him, but actually we could all have him together. No, he's wonderful. You should definitely have him on. I want more. I want as many people to hear what he has to say and to read his book, because
Mhm.
I feel like I'm a big believer in the ideal informant. You know what I mean? Like people are gonna listen to people who look like them, and you know you're running in circles that are different than my circles, or if you have a conversation with somebody in Louisiana, with somebody that I'm sure you run up living in a red state, you're going to run up against a lot of people who have different opinions about immigration. But I think, I know as an anthropologist, I want my next Survival of the Filthiest to be about migration specifically, and about the fact that people have always moved. It's one of the things I even taught in my class. People always move, always. We never stop moving, and we move for resources. And the 2 big resources in animals as a whole, even in zoology, is food and mates. That's usually the, I always say it's the two F's: food and fornicating. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's this, and that's, these are big drivers. And so, if there's not resources, but also safety. I mean, when it comes to humans, it's just being able to survive. And when your day-to-day life is being threatened by, gang violence, warfare, disease, lack of resources, lack of mates. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you're a spider monkey and your tree patch is just filled with cousins, that's a problem. But that's why.
Yeah. Unless you're in Alabama, then it's fine.
Then it's I don't want to say it, but I was conceived in Kentucky.
Oh, well.
And I do have relatives who are cousins, but they are, I think, distantly cousins. But it happens, and these things happen.
I mean,
oh my God,
cousins, So
I will say this: I was just in the UK, and I took a ride with an Uber driver who was very nice, very, very nice man, and he was explaining to me that he married his first cousin on his dad's side. Wait, was it his mom's side or his dad? I think it was his dad's side, because he goes, that's because the bloodline doesn't go that way. It goes on the mom's side. And I was like, actually, it's first cousin on either side, same problem. But I also didn't want to it's one of those moments where this guy had 3 or 4 kids. Do I really rip the fabric of this man's life apart and tell him that he's been wrong all these years? And also risk getting a really terrible Uber rating. Like, this woman didn't know what she was talking about, and she told me my whole life was a lie. But it was an interesting take that I just kind of, I was dealing with so many other things that I was like, I didn't really feel the need to give him a science lesson. And also I just had so many questions, oh my God. Okay. But yeah. So as an anthropologist, I have to understand cultural relativism. There's people that sometimes it's best to go, okay, and just listen.
Interesting. If I had a nickel for every time I listened to a science communicator talk about having a science discussion with an Uber driver, I'd have 2 nickels. It isn't a lot, but it's weird to happen twice. And Sean
so many.
Carroll, both in the UK, it seems, talk with I guess they make Uber drivers different than over here.
To have any sort of Venn diagram where Sean Carroll and I meet in the middle is, you've just made me very happy, very, very happy. That's funny. I mean, I'm gonna be very honest. Do you have? Oh, yay! Woo!
Great book.
I can't reach over there, and I'm not gonna. But I've been listening to something deeply hidden. I was listening to that last year because I was doing a lot of road trips, and that blew my mind in the best way. So, but yeah, I will say this: I actually years ago had a lap dance, and the woman who gave me the lap dance, I know I am very uncomfortable in lap, even though I do burlesque as Professor Evolution because I'm a dork, but I always feel weird getting lap dances because I just want to respect their brain. And so I ended up having a talk about biological anthropologists from this really wonderful woman from, I believe she was from Ukraine, actually, in Vegas. But it was just, I've never thought I'd have a lap dance and be talking about, hominin evolution. And there we were talking about that. And it was unbelievable. Best lap dance, hands down, all the tips.
Peter, I'm asking you, reaching out to you right now. Have I told the story about the debate that I did in Baton Rouge on camera?
You have.
I have told it on camera? Okay, I wasn't sure if I'd shared that.
Oh wait, on camera, on air, you mean?
Like live? Yeah, on air. Have I done it on air?
I don't think so.
You haven't told me.
Because
you can't leave me hanging.
I haven't shared it with anyone other than that I knew about a story, but never shared about who it was and when it happened.
Oh, I don't know. This is maybe the one time ever.
You kind of spilled the beans right now a little.
Yeah. Well, plus it was like, oh God, was that 9 years ago? Peter, we're getting old.
This
okay,
happens.
Fine. All right, fine. It was like almost I hate saying this. It was almost a decade ago. So
hold on. That was very long ago because I recently watched Vice Rhino, who has an intro when he does videos about Matt Powell, and you're in that intro, and I thought, who's that young boy sitting there with no beard? And
I used to not wear my glasses on stream too, because the computer's right there. But
this was
yeah.
the air and space thing.
Oh
It
no!
It was around that time when the other debate happened, I think.
All right, I'll do it then. No, the other debate was well before that. But so back in like 2016, yours truly here had a debate planned. I was going to be on Modern Day Debates channel, but back before we called it Modern Day Debate, he was Modern Day Hysteria, and he just had a bunch of nobodies like me on. So I went on. Steve McRae was on, and there was some Chris something or other, and then there was a creationist on. However, I also had a date plan for that evening. And we're already demonetized, so it doesn't matter.
Oh no!
I go over to.
I'm mad about that.
To said a date's place, and I'm like, hey, listen, I have a debate this evening, and I don't actually know if I can tell the rest of the story on air. Well, we were engaged in each other's or in intimacy, and I was like, hold on a second, I have to rebut the person. I'm not on screen, but I was like debating while with said person.
You were multitasking.
I was multitasking.
I understand. I want to just give you a slow clap because that's amazing. Keep going.
That was the
that was fantastic.
Your story reminded me of that.
I feel like there could be a book called things scientists have done whilst boning. You know what I mean? And it's like, sex sells, and then just spelled it as CELLS. But seriously, you got to look. I'm all about it. My first burlesque performance last year, I did the evolution of women and marginalized genders, where I came out dressed as a chimp. So it started 6 million years ago. Came out dressed like a chimp. Well, hold on. Where's the mask? I wore this mask. And a chimpanzee outfit. Okay. And then to 2001 Space Odyssey. Hold on, let me just get my camera to calm down the light. There we go. To 2001 Space Odyssey, stripped down to a cave lady costume, created fire, created the first tools because my friends wrote the archaeological evidence and physiological evidence of women hunting in the late Pleistocene. And then I went ahead and then around the Neolithic Revolution, stripped down into a corset, sexy outfit. The corset gets tightened to represent the patriarchy.
Right.
And then, but it was like, it told the whole story, it told the whole, and then it was just like, suffrage, civil rights, Roe v. Wade, all this stuff, while also getting naked. So it was a journey. Hold on. Why is my camera being so angry? I look like an angel.
Yes,
I love, as I'm telling a devilish story, it's like my soul is being, if it exists, just ripped from my body, thrown into the sea. But yeah, and then cool. And then I left in vote pasties. So I came out in the chimp costume because it ended with, this is right before the election too. So it was we were so sad. We were so young. We were so young then, so kind of left with like the only way you can change this is to vote. And then, we all saw how that went. So
yeah, it's the more that I like have tried to empathize with my fellow Americans, the more I'm just deeply confused about our political struggles. I'm sure that Obergefell is next on the docket of things. Technically it's not next because they've already listed the list of cases they're taking up this fall, but probably next spring. I do want to say Sapphire, Science Nimby's Light, Jackson Weed, a man of many talents. Very true. Very true.
Yes.
but yeah, it is deeply concerning watching the backslide of the U.S. into full-blown fascism. It's kind of sad and scary.
And it's happening so fast. I mean, it's slow, fast. I mean, I feel like if you were angry in because I know I was marching in 2016 calling him a fascist, you know, so it seems like it's been fast since January, but it's like the intention was out there in 2016, and it's just so frustrating that everyone thought people were just overreacting, and it's like, know your history.
That part. And I didn't become I really didn't become politically conscious until a bit after 2016. Really, as it got closer to like 2020 was when I really started caring about it more, and now I've become a fanatic about reading like technical literature and like on politics and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it's rough. Yeah, and you're right. Know your history is a very good point. There's a good book by a guy named Timothy Snyder that is titled On Tyranny, and it's only like, it's a very small book, but it's like 20. I believe it's 20 just points about things to be aware of with regard to authoritarian leaders, and some of them are things like, be aware of leaders calling for national emergencies. I mean, this guy does it all the time. Calling for national emergencies is like his favorite move.
Yeah.
You know, because then you can authorize like use of greater force. Bring
in the Marines. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you don't just have to look at Trump. You can look at Putin did it at the start of his reign with the rebels. God, I'm drawing blanks. History is not my thing. There were these
the Chechen.
Yeah, the Chechen rebels. There you go. Yeah, exactly. There you go. The Chechen rebels, which allowed him to crack down on like dissenters, and you also had Hitler with the Reichstag fire, which allowed him to crack down on dissenters and so on. Like it's always in the context of, we have a national emergency. I mean, just literally this week, there's crime in D.C. is a national emergency.
Oh my God!
Federalize the police.
Yeah, there is crime in D.C. There's a man with 34 felonies in the White House, just living there. That is the crime. That is, yeah. So when I was teaching, one of the stats that came out, and I can't remember exactly the number, but there was a statistic of how many students were unaware of the Holocaust being real. And I do not know why my camera wants me to be so incredibly pale. I like it. That's as we talk about the Third Reich, all of a sudden I become the Aryan nation. We don't need that in our life. I'm already pale, so we don't need any help there. But yes, there was a big swath of the population who did not know about the Holocaust, or did not know that 6 million Jews specifically died in the Holocaust, among so many others that were, queers, scientists, anybody that didn't fit into whatever the Aryan race is. Gypsies, I know we don't use that term anymore, but the Romani people. But yeah, so I made sure that when I would get to the American eugenics movement, because I taught biological anthropology, that I would also be like, okay, are we clear? Do you know about the Holocaust? I'd still go over parts of it, but I would like ask people to raise their hand. Have you heard of it? And they all had, thank goodness, because I've taught in California and New York and actually Eastern Kentucky, but that was an online course where I couldn't see my students. So it was a little bit tough, but tougher there. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they left university having a clear idea that this did happen. This was not a hoax. This is not a myth. This is actual history, and that's, I think, vitally important. When you have people denying that, it's terrifying, and it opens the door for the fascists to walk right on through.
Yeah, don't listen to what you hear on Joe Rogan podcasts. Oops,
nope.
The camera has decided to freeze.
Oh, no.
There we go.
Back.
Much better.
Yeah, or Theo Vaughn, or any of these. What's that other guy? Adam something or other, the one with the mustache. I don't. All these comedians that decided, they're kind of. I've seen some comedians go far right, because I do comedy as well, and I run in those circles, and I've seen some comedians really just go far right because there's money there, because you stand out, and there's appeal there. It's low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging rotten fruit, if you ask me.
Yes. Yeah. I do also want to ask, you are to add a little bit of levity, you're in anthropology. what got you into anthropology?
King Kong. No, actually it was King Kong. I used to have recurring King Kong nightmares as a child. And
also like a place to worship King Kong in your house.
Oh yeah, you've seen that. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
I set that up. So yeah, I used to have a King Kong shrine. I had a boyfriend many moons ago who he was one of those people that would like he knew I loved gorillas. So every present, like I remember Christmas, I'd get a King Kong Christmas ornament. I'd get a King Kong little statue. I need to actually bring it back. It's all at my mom's house because when I moved to New York, I didn't take it. And since I moved back, I haven't set it back up. But I used to have recurring King Kong nightmares. And then my very first lucid dream was I could hear the footsteps in the distance. And to kind of age me, but also give you a placement, I was in the living room from Silver Spoons, that Ricky Schroeder show from the 80s. I remember being there and hearing the footsteps and being terrified. And when I finally opened the door to reveal King Kong, it was an orangutan and it hugged me. And ever since that, I was just kind of like enamored with primates. And I wanted to go into zoology. I wanted to be a zoologist in my like tweens. And when I got to junior high and high school mostly, my math and science skills were waning. I didn't really have I went to Catholic school and they always had coaches teaching math. And I was like, why do you have a basketball coach teaching geometry? I don't understand. And so I ended up doing the next best thing. If I couldn't chase monkeys, I did comedy and I went into theater, which was my other great love. And so I did a year of college at UC Irvine and ended up dropping out and worked in the film industry. And then but it took like I took an anthropology class at UCI and I didn't even know what anthropology was. You know, I was like, what is this class? And it was cultural anthro. So, you know, in anthropology, for the folks at home, it's, you know, anthropos, it's a study of humans, you know. And that includes biological anthropology, cultural archaeology, and linguistics, which is like the redheaded stepchild of anthropology. But
sad.
I know, poor linguistics. But I took one cultural class and then I ended up going back to a community college. I want to sing the praises of all community colleges because they really do inspire and get people ahead. Because I took a bulk of my undergrad classes at a community college, Santa Monica Community College. And I took biological anthropology fall of 2001. So a lot changed in fall 2001. You know, you could say America got its cherry popped in terms of like, we are not safe. Terrorism is real and it happened on our own soil. So there was just it was a weird time, but it was, I remember learning the history of the world, 4.5 billion years of evolution. My mind was absolutely blown. But I still didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh, that's nice. And I kept being a stand-in on TV shows across the street because I live across the street from Warner Brothers. And then I got hit by a truck at 25 on the shoulder of the 101 freeway. Oh my God. On the 101. And I was a pedestrian. So I rear-ended somebody, pulled over onto the shoulder. As we were exchanging information, a woman came up on the shoulder driving about 65 miles per hour and hit my truck. And my truck hit me and then pinned me. And then I got tossed onto the off ramp and I landed on my head, which explains a lot. But I broke my femur. I severed all the ligaments and tendons connecting to my right foot. I bled. I lost 6 units of blood. I broke my shoulder or my clavicle. I punctured my lungs. I broke pretty much all my ribs and I ruptured my spleen. And I came to, all I remember is I could hear it before I saw it. I just saw a glimpse of silver and put my arms up like this. And I knew in that moment there was no way of surviving. It was like, oh yeah, this is it. Like it was lights out. Like it was like, well, that's all folks, you know? And I came to as they were putting me in the ambulance, you know, and just kind of shocked. I thought it was a dream because I was like, there's no way I survived that. But I did. And so that was kind of the kick in the ass I needed to go back to school for anthropology. And so but at the same time, I'd lost my SAG insurance. I used to be a member, you know, I still am a member of SAG, but I had SAG insurance and I lost it right before the accident. So I was doing tons of stand-in work afterwards to make my insurance because they had raised how much you need to make to qualify. And then I went back to school for anthropology and I finished my undergrad at 28, I think. And I took a year off and then I went back to school at 29 and did a master's in, you know, less than 2 years. It was one of those things where it usually takes 4 to 5 years because I did a thesis, I did field work, but I was like, I want in and I want out. And that's what got me to do it. It was getting hit by a truck, you know, sometimes in life. Yeah. And I broke my femur. Oh yeah, it's over there. But they put a rod in my leg, and I got to keep it. So it's pretty cool.
That is just short of miraculous that you survived that. Based
Yeah.
on goodness.
Not dead yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not dead yet.
That's so interesting. Do you have any works that you would recommend on like cultural anthropology?
Cultural anthropology, like ethnographic studies and things of that sort?
Yeah. The only one I have that I have not started yet is like this one. But do you have any recommends?
I mean, I led, like, the very beginning, I read Malinowski, which Malinowski's like one of the fathers. I mean, there's Franz Boas, but like one of the fathers of like cultural anthropology. He studied the Trobriand Islanders, which I remember being absolutely just blown away by that. I mean, Margaret Mead's work is also really interesting. I love Judith Butler. I've got looking back over there. There's also what was it? Salvation on. There was this one that was about. It was an ethnographic book about salvation on. It was about snake handlers. It was. I mean, if you want to talk about like religion and how salvation on something mountain. Also, Salvation Mountain is in whatchamacallit, Salton Sea. Damn it. I'll have to find it. No, that's not it. Okay.
Sand Mountain?
No, is it Sand Mountain? It might be. It's like I said, that I read probably in 2007. Also Sabina Magliocco was my she taught witchcraft and folklore, and she's a folklorist, and she's actually been on Ancient Aliens quite a bit.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, as a skeptic, but yeah. Oh yeah, witching culture. She wrote that, and then the Two Madonnas. But yeah, I remember we read Witching Culture, which is a great ethnographic book, and then Neo-Pagan Sacred Art and Altars. And then, I mean, honestly, the Jason De Leon book that I mentioned is great. Soldiers and Kings. My friend wrote a book called Edible Insects and Human Evolution. Her name's Dr. Julie Lesnick. I actually interviewed her last week on my show with Dr. Melanie Beasley about new research showing that Neanderthals were probably eating putrefied meat with maggots. And that's how they had such high nitrogen levels in their remains. Same with anatomically modern humans during the late Pleistocene. But she wrote a book specifically about eating insects around the world, and just the fact that over 2 billion people around the world eat insects. However, we think it's gross. And we talked about on the show, this idea of what is disgusting and gross is actually a learned emotion. It's not something that we're born with, because if you watch your parents eat, what's something gross that I used to do? Oh my God. I used to love getting a fillet of fish and dipping it in my chocolate shake. I do not know why. Right. But if you watched your mom do that forever and you're like, well, I'll try it, and she doesn't seem disgusted and she thinks it's a delicacy, you might think the same. Right. I mean, there's a lot of things, like I joke that, we're a species that eats, or a culture specifically that eats like deep fried butter, at county fairs, or
right.
Why is this being so? My camera is just being a little jerk today. Or lamb fries, which are sheep testicles, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that humans do that are crazy, but it's something that is learned over time. It's a culturally, because that's one of the things I always talk about too, is that humans are not just a biological species. We're very much a cultural one, right? A lot of our behavior is not dictated by our biology. I got into it with my dad recently because, he's very, very, very smart, big historian, big history buff, but we were just talking about men, just men. I'm like, oh, men. And he goes, oh, but they've always been that way. They're like that. And I said, no, I really do think that a lot of men, it's culturally taught. If you're taught at a young age to respect women and that you are equals and you're doing the same jobs and this and that, it's different, right? But if you're, and that's the other thing, is culture is scary as a parent, right? Because you can't control what your kid digests sometimes, right? You can't control if they listen to Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn, right? Or watch show, or what is that guy, Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think that men are inherently bad. I just think that culture has sort of pushed a narrative that you need to be strong and not cry, and women are subordinate to you, and this and that. And I think the good news, though, is that humans, all primates really, are very plastic. We change, and cultural evolution is so fast. So if we want to change it, we can. It can change not totally overnight, but if you look at like post World War II, Japan and Germany, these countries that were invading folks all willy-nilly, all of a sudden became fairly pacifist nations that, in the cases of Germany, have taken in refugees and really pushed for being accepting, right? So
yeah, it seems like they like us, are a little backsliding on it now, but yeah,
yeah, I know. It's like,
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I was reading about the different waves of the feminist movements not too long ago, and looking at how within just a couple of years, public perception, I can words, on so many different issues shifted so greatly, because like you have your like first wave, which is more really just like the suffragette movement, and then you have like getting women into the workforce, and then it really kind of blossoms out into such a hodgepodge of different issues that that includes like a queer theory and whatnot, that later writers would be like, well, it's not really entirely clear what like third wave feminism was about. It was just about bringing a bunch of issues onto kind of the national stage. And you're right, then that does occur now, thanks to like the internet, so quickly. Although again, it does seem we are kind of backsliding in a lot of regards.
I know.
Or at least the front that we present politically is definitely on a backslide. I haven't actually looked at statistics for like Americans, so I'd be curious to know what the statistics are of like the average person for that sort of stuff. But I do.
You mean
also
their belief system?
Yeah.
Well, so I have a guest that you should also have on. My friend Andrea Jones-Roy, Peter knows because Peter produced that show. Andrea is a politician, but also a data scientist. And she wrote an article, I believe, in the Daily Beast last year about basically how polarized we are, and the fact that we're not actually as polarized as you think, but because there's just no overlap. Right. So back in the day, in the 80s and the 90s, you might find somebody who's like pro Second Amendment, but also pro choice, and also pro, immigrant or what, like basically there was overlap of what people believed. And now people are just kind of going, well, I'm right, and I'm going to follow all the things right, or I'm left and I'm going to go all the, you know what I mean? And that's, I like how I went right when I went left, but it's fine. It's been a long day, and I'm an angel again. So okay. Look at, okay, good. Yeah. And I'm an angel again. Look at me, just glowing.
I think you're right. There are those. There used to be more. I don't know. Well, maybe that's not entirely true, but
like more centrist.
You're right. There is like a diversity, or there can be a diversity of opinion, because like in this book, the one of the first big pushes against the encomienda system, which is basically a slave plantation but owned by the Spanish in the New World in Central and South America before the English showed up in force. There were some priests, like some Dominican and some Franciscan priests and these groups and Jesuits who argued against that system, and Bartolome de las Casas was kind of the main person in charge of that. And so you had this one guy who was like fighting against it, but most of the other priests were very much in favor of the system. What was the name of the person who you said we should have on?
Oh, Andrea Jones-Roy. So it's Andrea Andrea Jones and then -ROOY. She's also a circus performer, a comedian.
I just put it in the chat along with the link to the show you did with her. It's I think it's a must watch.
We talked how. Wait, is it the most watched?
No, I think it's a must watch. I learned so much from that show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, and I adore, like, we talked, I believe, over 2 hours. And there was, when you have like moments of silence and it's like, well, I don't know. I had to actively shut that show down because otherwise we would have talked for 4. I mean, and Andrea again is like a dear. We've gone to Detroit together to perform. We've performed in New York together. We've known each other for years, but just wealth of knowledge, and also vastly interesting. Like, really, when you get the anthropology involved in these political discussions, because it's so it really, there needs to be a holistic look when we look at why people vote the way they do, why they think the way they do. Even this idea of having sort of a radical empathy when dealing with people we don't agree with, which is really tough, I think, and to an extent, right? I've also had another friend who runs the National Center of Science Education. She's also a good friend, Amanda Townley. And, she talks a lot about radical empathy. And to an extent, when it becomes trolling, when people start coming at you and are just trying to knock you down, insult your intelligence, it's like, okay, well, you're not trying to learn. But having the willingness to have a discussion with somebody who has vastly different views than you it's a challenge. But I think, especially now, and white people, and specifically like white people that have friends and family, or maybe not friends so much, but because I don't know about you, but I don't really have any friends that would lean right, because that's just
I have family, but not
I have family. Exactly. I have family, but I don't have friends that do that. But it's even having those uncomfortable conversations, because it pales in comparison the lack of comfort that a trans person would have having that conversation with your uncle or whatever, like it's your turn to be uncomfortable and at least make the attempt, because otherwise, and then you can ostracize them. That's the other form of punishment. But I mean, at least try in the meantime, have that conversation, and try to reason if you can. But
from your perspective, how do we get people to even like get to a point where they allow themselves to be made to feel like to have uncomfortable conversations? How do we do that, do you think?
On which side? On the side of, like, I mean, I hate to do it, on the side of science, maybe I'll call it that.
Yeah. The science or sociological issues, or
I think it's, well, the side of science. I do think that scientists have an ethical responsibility to talk about what they know now more than ever, especially when we have RFK Jr. in a leadership role, and this pushback on RNA vaccines, which have saved, in the case of COVID, at least 14 million lives here in the US, not to mention worldwide, but and what they could save in the future, and things like avian flu. But I think it's being prepared to get backlash, accepting the fact that you're going to have a little resilience and thick skin, and also I think it's really, I've been surprised at the amount of times I have gone toe to toe with people, either in person or online, and their willingness to listen. And so I think, I remember, this is a very silly example, but I remember on YouTube, I used to do a lot of videos for Discovery D News, and I used the term fishes to describe, multiple species of fish, and it was the correct use of the word fishes. And somebody in the comments just kept telling me I was an ugly idiot or something. But they insulted my looks. Like, I think they called me fat, or I don't know. They insulted my looks and also said I was wrong and stupid, right? Yeah. And I went back and forth a little bit, and finally I just put in the dictionary definition, and they're like, wow, you're right. Thank you. And I'm sorry I called you fat, or something like that. It was very funny. It was just like, I remember thinking, oh my God, it worked. And I had a recent one too, where I talked about, it was about, I think speciation, or, I can't remember. It was something we talked about, had to do with genetics and chimpanzee. I don't know exactly what it was about, but it was a very quick interaction with somebody on Instagram that somebody actually wrote, oh my God, I learned so much. They came in kind of hot, kind of hostile. And one of the things I have to do is kind of go, breathe, don't be snarky. Sometimes you got to be snarky. If they start off real mean, just go snarky back. But sometimes it's just like, take a moment. In person, it's tough. It is, I think listening is so crucial, because allowing the person to feel like you actually want to hear what they have to say is such a sign of respect. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of these people that want to argue just want to be heard in some capacity, even if they're dead wrong. And sometimes you can give them that platform. I know I met somebody recently who had some opinions I was surprised by, because I just didn't see it coming, and it was in line with the tinfoil hat wearing thought process, anti-vax, 5G, all this kind of stuff that I was like, whoa, chemtrails. I was like, woohoo, but they were also very open to my response. And they basically said, hey, if you have something to teach me, I want to hear it, and that's rare, but sometimes it happens. So I think don't underestimate how willing your audience is to listen, and be very open to listening. If that makes sense. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. I don't really argue with people on the internet very much anymore. I just have too many things to do. But yeah, you're right. So many times, I think probably out of like 100 conversations, you get one person who's like, wow, okay, that is cool, or that changed my mind on what have you. And then you feel really good about that one. And then you're like, all right, 100 more
Let's
debates
do
of creationists, They really don't come around much anymore, but
right.
But yeah, they're too busy. They've been all sucked up by other by political movements now, so it's like they don't come around really as much to talk about.
They got to destroy gay marriage. Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, that's the creationism. Well, I mean, it's like the Wedge document, right? That where the Discovery Institute accidentally leaks the Wedge document. And it's like, okay, well, all the creationism stuff they do is just a front to get to the point where we can repeal gay marriage. We can go publicly after it, or bring in a theocracy, or what have you. And now they've finally gotten to the point where they're like, we can just say this now. We can just say outright, like, actually, we don't like gay people, or we do want the president to be a philosopher king who's a Christian. Like they're at the point now where all the pretense is gone.
Yeah, they're saying the quiet part out loud, right?
Yeah, and so you get horrifying story. I realize I've got on a tangent, but you're right. I think you're right that a lot of people do want to listen, and I would like to talk to Andrea Jones Roy, maybe, and hear some of those opinions, because I don't know. I go back and forth. I feel like I drive myself crazy trying to think about how like a normal person thinks about politics or what have you, and then it makes me sad a lot of times when I do that. But
it's depressing. I mean, like I do think John Fugel. So, John Fugel saying he's a comedian who actually just has his book just coming out soon. Actually, no, it just came out. It's called The Separation of Church and Hate, which is a great title. And John is a dear friend. We were part of each other's like quarantine pod during COVID, because he was supposed to go on tour, the Sexy Liberal tour, with Stephanie Miller and Hal Sparks and Frangela et al. But they couldn't. And so we shot his stand-up all around New York City, but he does he's a Catholic, first of all. So he is, and I'm not an atheist either. I'm not religious, but I'm just not an atheist. But he is a believer, but he knows the Bible, and he knows the Bible very well. And he uses it to debate Christian conservatives, and talks about how Jesus never talked about abortion. Jesus hung out with hookers and the poor and this and that. Jesus said, pay your taxes, So he uses the Bible to debate folks, much like maybe Aaron would, but he does it from the perspective as a believer. But no, what was I going to say? Oh no, we would get into it. No, I mean, we wouldn't argue necessarily, but I remember when I do think that we do have I mean, this is no surprise, a racism problem in this country, and it's really
What?
hard.
What?
I know.
What?
And I remember in 2015 when Dylan Roof killed 9 parishioners in a South Carolina church because of the color of their skin, and then was served Burger King afterwards. I thought, if people only knew that race wasn't real, and you know, in terms of a biological concept, and it's a cultural constructed concept, it's real in terms of like it, you know, it
Right.
is identify, but it's not real in the way they think it is. But then also I had this sort of, you know, kind of harebrained moment where I was like, if only they knew. And it was very naive and it was very cute. And I want to go back and pat my little head and be like, because sometimes people just want to be mad and want to be angry and want something to blame. They need a scapegoat. And that's the tough part, is like really getting to the root of the fear and the hate, because it has nothing to do with like, oh, they actually think it's a biological concept. They just don't like people that are different from them. And why is that? And like we talked about, like diversity, variation, good. And when there's none, you have inbreeding depression, bad, you know. And so I don't know, it's complicated, you know. It's a complicated
You're right
process. Yeah,
it's not at the core of it, it's not, well, I have facts and logic. It's, I have an ick. There's an ick feeling about something, and so you build the logical arguments around the ick to try to justify it.
And that's why listening is so important.
Yeah, we did a video on this channel a little while back titled "The Grasshopper's Tale." It's probably like a year or so ago now. Who knows? Time isn't real, but also it's socially constructed.
Flat circle. No,
yeah, unfortunate. But the Grasshopper's Tale is based on Richard Dawkins and Ian Wong's book, a chapter in their book, and so that's about why race is not genetically or biologically real. And then fortuitously, a little bit after I did that video, actually one of the classes I taught is about race, and I got to go on this whole talk as part of that. Is like, now we're going to talk about why this isn't biologically real. There's no basis for this in genetics, and then got to go through all that fun stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Zach Hancock, I don't know if you know him, but he's a population geneticist, so he did a video which is way better than mine on the concept, or on the facts surrounding the social construction of race and these other things.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so important to, I mean, for D News, when I worked at Discovery, we did a D News After Dark, which sounds like it's gonna be sexy time stories, but it wasn't. It was just supposed to be like nighttime themed stuff. And I took it to us living in the dark. That was my take on it. And so we're living in the dark when it comes to race. Like, we think it's a biological concept. And so I did a talk about it, and like bringing up like Nina Jablonski's work about skin color and melanin production, and that, you know, melanin production is a sunscreen and protects us from, you know, UV. And then we go north, you know, just like really breaking down like what exactly leads to different skin color, and just the fact that, you know, if you went across the world, you know, from like the fact that borders, you know, between countries, you're going to see, you know, it's clines, not clades. It's slow, gradual change, you know. Rather than these big clades. So it's really fascinating and interesting when people break it down. And I think, you know, finding rather than facts and stats, it's storytelling, like telling it like a story, I think is really what gets people sort of enthralled in science.
Narrativizing. Yeah,
like
I
totally
agree.
Yeah, make it a narrative.
Yeah, I think that I kind of learned that when I started at the aquarium. Was like, if you teach people that science is just like a handful of like facts that are kind of disconnected, it's like it's easy to lose sight of all of that, because it's like, well, why do I need this statistic over here and this little, you know, thing over here? But like, if you can all weave it into one story, this is why this happened because of this, because of this, because of this, then like, oh, okay, and it sticks around with them a lot longer, and all of that. Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's why I recommend again The War on Science by Sean Otto, because he narrativizes the history.
There's a new book. Wait, when did that come out? Because there's a new book that's like a series of essays, but they seem to be very right wing.
It is. So that book is also unfortunately called The War on Science, but that is edited by Lawrence Krauss. So The War on Science by Sean Otto is very good.
Sean Otto. Yeah, no
SHAWN then OTTO. Yeah, that book is phenomenal. But Krauss's book is why cancel culture and trans people are icky.
Yeah.
Because of course it is. It's so weird how like once. Never mind. Anyway, it's
you can go there because I'm happy to go back. But yeah.
I was gonna. I'll let that comment go. It's what's funny is I actually stumbled across that the one of the people who's in that book who is an archaeologist. She was studying. I do not remember her name, but we did we were looking at some videos on our channel. It's called like Heterodox Academy, and they basically ask people to give kind of more right-leaning talks about science and public policy and things like this. And then one of the people who gave a talk on it, this is how I first found out about it, because a friend of mine sent it, not really knowing that this was like a right-wing group. He was just like, what do you think about this? And I watched it. And I mean, some of the points she made were fair. So she talked about the way that scientific journals present indigenous like remains, for instance, and how there's a whole debate over like a lot of journals won't let you take photos of the remains, but you can draw them and then submit that or what have you. And I was like, okay. And also apparently there was something with like King Tut at the Smithsonian or whatever, that like they hid the body for a bit because they were having like a kerfuffle over whether or not it was okay to show it. Now she used this to say like, well, there are a bunch of, lily-livered cowards instead of, for not taking photos of dead bodies and whatnot. My thought upon watching this video, and I want to hear yours, is like, why don't you just ask those people? I'm sure they're still around. Just go and say like, hey, can we show this? Is this okay? If not, then okay, fine. But if it is, like, it just seems to me like that would work. I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think really going to any sort of indigenous groups that are still living and asking them what they want is the go-to move. Always. It's not that hard. I mean, I just was at the British Museum. You can only deep sigh with the British Museum because it's free. First of all, I didn't pay to go. But I was like, oh, it pains me to go here, but I wanted to go there. But it's like, give this stuff back. Give it back. Please give it back. Give it back. But yeah, I think that indigenous knowledge has been long ignored. You might have heard about the study that came out, I believe, in 2022 or 2023, that they found footsteps in New Mexico that were 22,000 years old, human footsteps that were also around a giant ground sloth. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Like, I love it. This is like set the tableau. You're in New Mexico, high desert, beautiful big sky, and you've got an anatomically modern human cruising along with a giant ground sloth, a little megatherium for your evening. But yeah, this is something that for years we thought that they would say, oh no, we didn't, indigenous people didn't get to the US till like 12,000, 11,000 years ago. They would say much more recent, and indigenous people have said, no, our people have been here for a lot longer. And of course I understand that, science wants, we want the hard facts. I'm an angel again. But the thing is, like, maybe you should listen to the indigenous folks who they have the stories, they have and also the evidence now to back it up. So I think incorporating that knowledge, incorporating even the way that they have dealt with the land management is incredibly important, because they have done a great job of exploiting things sustainably. We see that in South and Central America with, like, say, hunting of monkeys and things of that sort. Like, they only hunt certain monkeys during certain times of the year, like the wet season, where there's more monkeys and it's not going to basically decimate the population. And they do it in a sustainable way. There's also been examples where the indigenous cultures have overexploited their land and learned from it, and then have sort of reassessed and now do it differently because they've overhunted, like, caribou in certain I think that was I don't know if it was the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, but it was in the northeast Canada, border where there was overhunting of caribou, and they had to sort of dial it back, right? And do better management. So again, I think there's a lot we can learn from indigenous knowledge and the gatekeeping, this sort of idea that unless you have letters next to your name, although a lot of indigenous now are PhDs and master students, and I think it's great to see indigenous people continually doing work in their own communities, because there is something, anthropology, rightfully so, has gotten a bad rap, again, rightfully so, for studying the other, and in a way where there's a condescension. There is this a very subjective way of looking at a group of people and looking at their history in a very subjective and judgmental way. And that's bad science, right? So, and I mean, that's the thing, is it's not even bad behavior. It's just bad science. You want to be as objective as possible. So, but I definitely think asking the question to indigenous that are still around, which many are, some are not, because we decimated them.
Yeah.
White settlers did a real, brutal job coming to this lovely land. But
yeah,
and
you're
listen,
right.
Yeah.
And listen.
And we'll just listen. If they say don't take pictures, don't do it. And people don't like repay. I know that one of them, oh my God, because I saw somebody was writing up a thing about this new war on science with Lawrence Krauss, and I have my own opinion about Lawrence. But yeah, even like pushing back on repatriation of remains. And I'm just like, it's not your decision to make, just kind of prioritizing good science over living people, I think, is very short-sighted and cruel, honestly.
Yeah. In the book, or one of the books, All the Shah's Men by Stephen Kinzer, it's about how we overthrew Iran back in 1953, and then the subsequent fallout of that, which was all good. It was all great. Everything was great. We never had a problem again after that. They never disliked anything we did ever again. We didn't, ruin the great relationship we had with them prior to that. But anyway,
oh my God.
But the British at one point have a person write up like a profile on the psychology of the Iranians, and it's just terrible. It's so bad. He's like, they're all shifty and dishonest and everything.
Wow.
But you
get it. I mean, like, it's that.
Yeah.
It's wild to think that these. Yeah, there's no cultural relativism. I mean, I'm sure, like, they're not going to be trusting of anybody doing this study. They're not going to, I don't know. Who's your inform? I don't know. It's just, I have so many questions, but yeah.
It's a really good book.
I know All the Shah's Men. I have that on my list.
Yeah, Kinzer's great. He wrote another book titled Bitter Fruit, which is about the overthrow of Guatemala.
I would love to read that. I spent a lot of time in Guatemala. I do love.
Dang it! I can't. That's another joke I can't make on screen. My wife is of Guatemalan descent.
Oh, cool!
So
you've also spent a lot of time. I made it for you.
For you. I couldn't do it.
I hope your wife is. I'm sure she's lovely, but no, I hope I don't offend her.
No, I don't. She's not.
Is she watching? Tell her hi. Does she ever do the show?
No, she is. Well, okay. I mean, she's like made to throw like frying pans at me in the background, but no, she's not.
I love that.
Been on the show yet? She's over in the other room, probably watching one of her shows.
Cool.
Oh, she heard me talking.
Oh.
Yeah. So that book is also great because that's another example of we wrecked their country and then told them they can't come here after we wrecked their country, along with we did it to El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala,
Nicaragua.
There we go. Yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah, Panama. We did fuck with pretty bad. I mean, 1989. we don't hear, I didn't know that 3,000 Panamanians died until I got to Panama. And they're like, oh yeah, 3,000 of us died. And I was like, yeah, they don't teach that in school. They didn't, and I was in elementary school when that happened. I 1989, I was what, 5th grade, and it's.
Yeah. And then like, even when we do intervene, we do it for like the wrong reasons, like in Grenada.
Yes.
We were like, overthrow or violent overthrow of the country. And we're like, we're going to go in to save the medical students, like, or the violent overthrow of the country. Either way, it's fine. Whatever. we got to the end.
What makes us look good? Oh, I don't know. I look fuck it. Let's just
Okay, never mind. She is in the live chat. She was watching when you said that. Okay.
Hi, how
are you? But yeah, so Kinzer's great, just all around, really enjoyable.
I read Bitter Fruit down. I would like to read it. I took Central American history in college. I think that was before I actually went there, because I think the first time I ever went to Central America was Guatemala, and I had friends that were working at La Blanca, which was a Mayan site on the Pacific coast. And then, a friend of mine actually moved to Antigua and lived there for many years. But we went to Tikal, being anthro students, had to go up to the Petén. And but I went back maybe 4 or 5 times. I mean, I loved it there. And they have spider monkeys, which of course is what I studied. But I did work in Nicaragua too. I worked on Ometepe Island. They have a primate field school called La Suerte there. And so I worked there in 2012. And then Costa Rica, I've been a few times for primate field school teaching. And then Panama is where I did most of my field work with spider monkeys.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Arcton says, you read Smedley Butler. No. Who is that? Please send me. Yeah, who is this? I don't know.
Smedley Butler.
Yeah, all the history stuff has been like I've been trying to rapidly get all of it into my brain, because I don't know anything about history. Like I went to a decent like schooling all my life, but as soon as I got out, I was just like, even the history I got was like very limited, just because that's the constraints of school. There's only so much you can cover within a school year, and like 50 minutes for a class period, and so there's like so much of this knowledge I just don't have.
Yeah.
And when I kind of realized that recently, I was like, oh, it's very embarrassing to not know anything about much of human history, and so I've been trying to rectify that.
Catch up. I mean, there's a lot. And it's like also hard to know. And that's why I always write down suggestions from people that I feel like are using good judgment. Because there's a lot of history books out there that are a bit, dare I say, whitewashed, or have their own subjective spin to it. And so it's always good to I try to do a little vetting.
Let me see. I got this one. This
Ned Blackhawk. Ooh, okay.
History of the U.S., but from the native perspective.
I am writing this one
because I don't want to read. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I don't want to read a book about the rough and tumble nature of the pioneer. No, miss me with that.
These engines showed up out of nowhere, and you're like, wait a minute, hold up. Oh wait, who is it by? What's his name? Blackhawk? No, you're good. Ned. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I grew up in California. We read that. I had to take a whole year talking about California missions, like they did the right thing. I'm like, oh my God. We'd go to, because I'm from the San Fernando Valley. So I remember we went to the San Fernando mission as a kid. They didn't talk about the slavery and the brutality of it all, and that was real. And to think that kids are taught from an early age that it was just, and it's one of those things where to kind of really put yourself in the shoes of those that lived through it. Like, imagine living through something so horrendous and then being made out to be these savage people. That I'm using that term because it's a terrible term, and we're knocking it out of the vocabulary, which is great. But just like all these different, like I used to do a segment on John Fugelsang's show called Shit You Can't Say, about words and phrases with racist and problematic origins, like circle the wagons, powwow, Off the reservation, all these terms that are rooted in anti-indigenous sentiments and making out like they were the bad guy, like they invaded our territory, like they were giving us
We were
diseases.
just here, you know?
Yeah, like off the reservation, like, oh,
Yeah.
first of all, why did they even exist? You know, there's a whole, or even the word Caucasian. That's one of my favorite stories. Is Johannes Blumenbach, who was an anthropologist in the, oh god, I just blanked out. Was it the 1600s? I believe it was the 1600s that he went to the Caucasus Mountains, which is, you know, northern like Georgia, Azerbaijan area, and he decided they were the hottest people he's ever seen, the most attractive people he's ever seen, and therefore God must have created them first and everyone else second. And so he basically created this hierarchy, which is highly racist. You know, the red race, the Mongoloid, you know, very problematic, but he called them the Caucasians. And then because he was like, well, I can't leave out my beloved Western Europeans, he lumped in them. He lumped in Northern Indians and Persians. And it wasn't until a Northern Indian man came to the US, I believe in the late 1800s, because it allowed Caucasians. And they were like, no, you can't be a citizen. And he said, but I'm a Caucasian. And then that's when the US redefined it as kicking out these other groups because they realized, oh crap, that means we have to let them all in. You know, it's so shifty and shady. And of course, like Caucasus Mountains does not, unless you're from that area, you're not a Caucasian technically, but it's just, anyways.
Yeah, you're right. It's and that's actually so the Aviva Chomsky book, How Immigration Became Illegal. It does discuss a lot of the redefinitions of peoples. So like Spanish Hispanic like workers who would do the seasonal, you know, migrations, like come here, work the fields during the summer, go back home over the winter, whatever. Like their status was they weren't treated as like they weren't illegal. The concept of being an illegal person was applied only really to Chinese and Japanese immigrants to the U.S. who'd actually go through Mexico to get into the U.S. instead of going through like one of the ports in California. For $2.22, hail Jax, Nat, and Pete, and hail Filthy Science. Thank you so much, My Unfinished Journey.
Thank you.
And so like they were considered like kind of a status in between like national and citizen. They weren't citizens, couldn't vote, but they weren't like foreign nationals in the sort of sense. It was very, very, very easy for them to get like worker permits essentially. So like if you came to the US, you're a Hispanic person, you come to the US and you don't have this worker permit, they're like, well, you know, all you have to do now is just, you know, report to, you know, an embassy or wherever and pick it up basically. And so then it wasn't until I think it was 1965 that they finally put a cap on the number of Hispanic workers who could do this sort of like seasonal migration. Wow. And then as you mentioned at the start of the show, you had the increasing militarization of the border. And so there's been this kind of weird, Aviva Chomsky points out there's been a weird trade-off of like, as rights for one group grows, the rights for another group shrinks. And it's like there's this give and take that's characterized the history of immigration. But phenomenal book, really, really good. Regarding Native people, are you familiar with the Caddo people?
The Caddo,
Caddo, Caddo, Caddo, yeah.
No.
So I live in so Shreveport and Bossier, the sister city, are in Caddo Parish, which is named for the tribe that used to be here, the Caddo people.
Yeah.
Shreveport is named for a guy named Henry Miller Shreve, who I don't know if you're familiar with the history of Shreveport, but basically there was an enormous log jam that was here. It was called the Great Raft. And actually, do you know who Mini Minuteman is?
The Minutemen, I remember.
Mini Minuteman.
No.
He's a YouTuber. So he has a really great channel. He does archaeology content. He did a video recently where he talks about the Caddo, the tribe, the basically what Shreve did was he came down here. He was paid by the government to destroy this logjam. And this logjam, what it did was it literally created an environment that the Caddo tribe lived in, right? So it creates all these other bodies of water, like Caddo Lake, like Cypress Lake, Lake Bistino, or really Puddle Bistino, whatever. But it was like all these different bodies of water that are around here, and so he went in, blew it up, allowed the river to flow, and therefore deprived
Flooded. Oh wow.
deprived the Caddo of these lands that they used to hunt on, because now that the water has changed its direction, all these bodies of water started drying out, and so
that's diabolical.
Yeah, it is. And so he did a Milo Rossi. Yes, that's his real name, Milo Rossi, Mini Minuteman. But he did a phenomenal video where he talks about that, and he kind of ends with like, if we hadn't destroyed this natural wonder, this raft that had literally been here for a millennium, like,
wow,
it would still be here, it would still be diverting the waters, and like, is the building of Shreveport really worth it? Like,
I don't know. You tell me.
And I was watching that video and I was like, ooh.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of, I think, areas of this world that I feel like have been created and have destroyed certain areas for other people. I mean, you're frozen. Oh no.
Oh darn. Hold on, give me 1 second.
It's okay. It's usually me. I'm shocked.
There we go. Oh, it happens like once or twice a stream. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just been so much devastation that we have done, I feel like. When was this?
The video?
The Shreveport. When was Shreve?
It was like the early 1800s.
Wow. God, I'm gonna write that down. That's crazy.
It was like early to mid 1800s. Yeah. So Captain Henry Miller Shreve, and you're taught in school. When you get into 8th grade, you take a Louisiana history class, and you're taught about Henry Miller Shreve came in, he blew up the raft, and boom, shebang, there was Shreveport. And there is no discussion whatsoever of the native tribe. It's mentioned, they're like literally just mentioned that like they were here, then they weren't here. Crazy how that happens,
That's, I mean, so I live in Los Angeles, where we had the Tongva Gabriano indigenous, and then also the Chumash further north. But we didn't learn. I don't even think I really knew much about the Tongva until I was an adult, which is really very sad, considering the Tongva are still here. They're not as prevalent, but they were here for thousands of years, and even in the Channel Islands, like Catalina, Santa Catalina, which is just 26 miles out in the sea. But even like where I live in an area, I live right across the street from Warner Brothers Studios. So I'm like this Burbank, Toluca Lake. And Toluca Lake is one of those things where it's like, is there really a lake here? Because you can't see it, because it's one of those lakes where only the people who live on the lake get to go to the lake. And it's a real lake that I did not know this. It actually was used by the Tongva people before the Spanish got here. I thought it was a man-made lake. I was like, oh, it's just a man-made lake. Nope. And and then the Spanish, so the Tongva were here, were using the lake, lived along the lake, and I live right actually just the mountain that I'm literally looking at right there is the backside of the Hollywood sign. So I'm right near Hollywood and this whole area, but this was all inhabited by the Tongva. And of course, when the Spanish arrived first, before the white settlers got here and were building all these missions, they were the ones that kicked them out. And then all of a sudden they're like, this is our lake now. And then white settlers came and said, that's nice. You got to go. This is ours now. When Mexico became part of California became part of the U.S. rather than Mexico. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's sad, but it's also important history to know. And I'm glad that there's big land acknowledgement. Anytime I do a show, I try to remember up top to do a land acknowledgement, and acknowledge who was here and who is here, because a lot of them still are. Thank goodness. And just learning about how even queer ecology, I don't know if you've heard about queer ecology, but this sort of, so queer ecology is basically kind of destroying this heteronormative idea of the environment. that everything fits into some sort of binary, whether it's sex, gender, things of that sort. My friend Jason, also a good person to have on the show, is Jason Wise, or Jason Journeyman. He does a lot of queer ecology hikes. I'm actually going to be hosting one with him soon. We were supposed to do it on the 19th, but we had to push it because of all my grandpa passing away and whatnot. But he does a great hike where he talks about, just looking at ecology, getting out of this sort of Western European way of looking at it, and really, because queer ecology also includes a lot of indigenous knowledge. And instead of looking at things at this pyramid, like a pyramid of a trophic cascade with, humans on top and then everything below, instead of egocentric, it's more ecocentric. So think of it as a ball, and we are just one of the many things in the environment, right? And everything is equally on equal footing, equally as important. And I think that's very important, especially when we're looking at a time when climate change is, when we look at how things like frogs are affected, that's really important, because they are great indicators of changes in the environment. And they might seem like, it's just a frog. No, it's not just a frog. It's a great, like, sounding a little like the canary in the coal mine, of what's going on with our environment. So, but it also includes a lot of indigenous knowledge.
I guess there's a thing I talk about in one of my bio one for non-science majors class. Have you ever heard of there's a paper I found out about involving it's called the Sambia Turnim Man. You ever
the Sambia?
Yeah, Sambia the Turnim Man. It's they have people with at a very high rate within this one tribe, I guess, this one people, who very high rate of.
Is this in Papua New Guinea?
Yes.
Yes, I know about them for other reasons, but go on.
They have like an androgen reception problem. And so a lot of them will start as basically presenting female, and then as they get older, when puberty hits, it really hits hard, and so then they they present more male. But then there are other people within the tribe who it's the reverse, and of course it's much worse for you because women have kind of get the short shrift, at least from this paper, and so it's really interesting to me that I guess they wouldn't consider them like trans, really. I guess it's more like a binary, but they're like, you can go from one to the other, but that was really interesting to me because I read about that in a book on development, on human development, which is a really good book titled Life Unfolding by Jamie Davies. And so in that book, he gets to the point in your development as a little fetus where you start developing sexual organs. And so he talks about the Sambia Turnim Man. And I was like, wow, this is super interesting. And so when I discussed reproduction with my students, I was like, I have to talk about this,
Yeah. I'm looking it up right now because
I guess that I could put it here in our little side chat, Turnim Man.
Because if this is what I'm thinking of, they're also, because there's ritual homosexuality in the Sambia.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking of when you first was, because
okay. I didn't know about that.
Yes, and that's which is interesting with this added element to it. That's why I don't want to speak out of line, because I know that they have Sambia sexual culture, because this is it's in Papua New Guinea, Sambari. Just making sure, because this is something I learned. I remember in anthropology. I don't even. Oh, it might have been. Wait, did I take? No, she wasn't teaching anthropology of sex yet. My graduate advisor, Dr. Christina Campbell, teaches the anthropology of sex at Cal State Northridge, and I know she covers the Sambia. She probably covers this too. I did not know. They did not talk about this. This is fascinating. There's also another person you should have on your show.
Okay.
My friend Augustine Fuentes, who I will always sing Augustine's. Oh yeah, his book is somewhere around here too. It's called Sex is a Spectrum. But
Okay.
yeah. And so he talks about the sex biology and how it exists on a spectrum rather than being strict binaries. So
That's
yeah.
something that I had to kind of come around on, I have to admit, because I was raised in a fairly conservative household, and even still, that still gets into my thinking sometimes in ways that are unexpected to me. But that was one instance where I had to kind of rethink how sexes work in biology,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like I was, um, a few years ago, I would have listened to like I was never anti like any queer group. That never happened. But I would have probably listened to someone like Richard Dawkins being like, well, you have the two sexes, and
Mm-hmm.
that's this and there's this and that's is what it is. And I would have probably been like, okay, well, whatever. But nowadays I'm like, well, he should know better than this. Like
Yeah.
he should know better. But he spends one of my friends, Dan Stern Cardinal, made the comment like this guy spends his entire career talking about the genetic diversity of species and populations, only to turn around at the end of his career and say, actually, no, there is no
No.
diversity. It's one or
Yeah.
the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that is something I've had to rethink, and I don't really talk about that with my students per se, but
Yeah.
that's just something that like I've read more about recently and been like, okay, this like it's kind of hard to wrap your head around because it's so ingrained in our culture, the
Yeah.
dichotomy.
Even language. I mean, if you speak Spanish, French, any Latin language, it's gendered, right? And so even like coming up with terms like Latinx, Latine, like all these different, versions to sort of represent a non-binary way of looking at things. We think about things very much in a binary, and it's just easier sometimes to do that. But like when I talked to Augustine about this, and also just talking about how interesting the world is if you kind of get out of those boxes and get out of the binary and realize that science. One of my favorite quotes was from Love and Rockets, about you cannot go against nature, because when you do go against nature is part of nature too. And just this idea that nature is always going to surprise us. It continues to do so. So remaining open, I can understand having an idea that everything exists in binaries, but as you gather more information, you're like, okay, well, maybe I gotta change my thinking, and that's where I think it's frustrating when I see kind of the old guard that's just digging their heels in rather than, oh, wait a minute, hold up, we're finding more and more out, that this is at least 1% of the population, which is a lot of people if you really think about it. A lot of people, right?
Of 8 billion is a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. More than there are redheads, I believe, so there you have it. They're outnumbering the gingers in the world. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's yeah, it's stubborn. It reminds me of, I don't one of my favorite stories about culture and primates is, do you know about Emo, the Japanese macaque, and sweet potato washing? Okay. So there's Japanese
Wait.
macaques.
Tell me anyway.
No, it's not too long. So Japanese macaques, macaques are the second most widely distributed primate in the world, humans being first. There's some say 23 species of macaques, some say 21. There's tomato speciation's complicated.
Species aren't real. I said
right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Kleins, not clades. So Japanese macaques live at the highest latitude. They're the hot tub monkeys, right? They're the ones that chill in the hot tubs. But they also, there's on this island, it's called Koshima Island in Japan. I hope I'm saying that right. But there were a colony of macaques that were being provisioned by researchers, and they were giving them sweet potatoes and grains of rice. And these macaques would, they'd throw them on the sand, and they'd pick up the grains of rice and be like picking them out of the sand, one by one, until this female realized if you take it out to the sea, dip your hand in, all the grains of rice float to the top. So not only are they separated from the sand, they also have a nice little salty taste. Same with the sweet potatoes. She would wash the sweet potatoes, get all the sand off, have a nice little salty, almost like a sweet potato fry. And it spread through her group. And it was, all the young females first, then the older females, and the one holdout. Guess what group was the holdout? That was like,
old men.
It was the old guys that were like, I'm not washing my sweet potatoes like that young 3-year-old Japanese macaque, and they, you know, eventually I think they came around, but it was just an interesting thing. And I'm not saying all men are like that, but it was just
all men.
Hashtag all men.
Yeah.
Apparently my best friend, shout out to Ellen, my best friend since we were 9, has been watching TikTok, has I guess there are these lives where it's all men. And they're very funny. I've watched some of them. I'm like, oh my God, they're going for it. But in this case, I'm not trying to poop on the men, but it was just very funny that the older males.
It's okay. You can do that on my channel. It's fine.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Well, no, but it's just the Dawkins and the Krauses and the
Coin.
Yeah. Yes. Oh God, Jerry. Yeah. No. Very frustrating, but also like they're gonna get left behind, you know. But unfortunately, I do think there are enough young people who are listening, and that's why it's important to keep talking and doing what you're doing.
And you.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm a woman, so that's the problem.
You just have to launder your opinions through a man, and suddenly it's all good, you know.
Hold on. Hello. Hello.
That's how you do it.
My name is Stuart Alfender. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, this is what you got to do. You just got to this is a Noah puppet from Amazon. I've repurposed Noah to be Charles Darwin. I usually put a little bowler hat on him, so it's Charles Darwin in a bathrobe, but he's also covered in my dog's fur. But the creationists go, you know, absolutely apeshit when they realize I've repurposed their precious Noah to be Darwin.
That's hilarious. I love that.
He married his cousin. Oh, look, this is what happens.
You're ascending again. It keeps happening.
I was being blasphemous, and they're like, we'll show you. We're taking you out.
That is really funny. I will have to read about that because that is very interesting. I had only heard the part about like I think I've seen videos of them like doing the washing. One of my favorite videos is the raccoon that like gets some cotton candy and then goes to wash it in the river and then is like, no, what happened?
I don't think I've seen this.
It's so funny.
I'm taking so many notes. Raccoon washing
cotton candy. Yeah, it's so cute. He's like, he just goes like, he's trying to like paddle. He's like, what happened?
That's so funny. Yeah, well, that's what happens. Poor little buddy. Poor little bud.
Have you talked with Gutsick Gibbon?
I have not. No.
We have to change that.
I know. But Peter's been like, you guys need to do some sort of cross thing. But no, I love her channel. I think she's fantastic. And I'm
gonna put you in touch with
please do.
With Erica.
Yeah, I would love that.
Because you guys, I believe, would get along famously.
That would be great. And I could even go to the Gibbon Center. We could even given it a good time. I could just report live with a bunch of, white cheek gibbons.
Yeah.
I did get slapped in the face by one once named Domino. Yeah, I was doing a 360 video. Yeah.
You were doing a 360 video?
Yeah, in a gibbon enclosure. And I got slapped. I was probably asking for it. It was These are the things you have to do for natural history filming.
That's really funny. I had I was at a zoo. I feel like this is almost like a fever dream now. But I was at a zoo like near Gulf Shores, which is in Alabama for anyone who's unaware. And they had like a little tent. And you go in the tent and there's a person in there with gibbons. And they were like you're up. I literally held a gibbon. And I'm like, that's why I was like, this feels like a fever dream now, describing it to people. But they're like bouncing around in this little tent. And I'm like, they're all in danger. That can't possibly be legal.
That can't be legal. I mean, I'm not going to show anybody the video of me getting, because it was doing it for a show, it was like a professional thing. And I used to work at an animal sanctuary, and that had multiple monkeys that were rehomed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's crazy because I won't post any pictures of me. Like the most I ever posted was of me sitting next to a baboon, but not touching because and then when I was in grad school, when I did field work, I was trying to rehome a spider monkey that had been a former pet that got dumped Actually somebody bought it, and then we were trying to get it to a sanctuary, and I remember meeting the spider monkey, and she put both of her little hands on my shoulders, and I'm looking at and I'm smiling, but the smile is like clearly like one of those, like, it's a fear grimace. I'm like,
yeah.
because the next picture she jumped on me, and I did not want this happening. And so I used to use that picture, but now I don't, because the connotations are really bad, and I don't want to encourage any pet trade, because people see that. And I could even say, I am miserable in this picture, I am scared for my life, but people just see, oh, cute monkey, I want, and so you have to be very careful to not ever put that out there. So
yeah, I just remembered when we did the video the chimpanzee's tail way back at
cool
4 years ago, or maybe 5, whatever it was, time isn't real. We talk about the culture of chimps, and one of the things we discussed in that video is like the hand clasp, how like one
they do this
subspecies, I guess, they do the little hand clasp and like clean each other, but that's only one group uses rocks to crack nuts. Nobody else uses the rocks. It's like the rest will use like sticks or something else, but it's like they pass off the cultural practices in like particular ways, which I thought was really neat, reading those sorts of things.
It's no, absolutely. My friend Cleve Hicks did a study of chimpanzees. What were they called? Oh my god! They were in DRC. It's not Bilbo. It's gonna kill me. I have the book over there too, but it's basically this one group of chimps on one side of the river would eat these very aggressive ants. Super aggressive, and they would have dipping sticks. Now Cleve is like 6'6". The sticks were about as long as him. They were huge. They were so long. And then the other side of the river, they did not eat these ants, right? So it was like a clear distinction and culture. Like one was willing to take their life into, whatever, throw it caution to the wind and eat these terrible ants. On the other group was like, no, we're not going to do that. So just like showing that, and it's learned, it's transmitted, it's definitely culture, or even like, because that's an example of tool use. But yeah, and even in Senegal, because one of my favorite, I know that I've told, I hate to say it, men that I've studied primates, and they're like, did you know? They always love to go, did you know? They're like, I'm going to one up the primatologist. Did you know that chimpanzees will hunt monkeys in groups? The males will do it. I'm like, yeah, that I know, it's great. And they'll share the spoils at the end. It's like actually a bonding moment. Like they love red colobus monkeys. I call them chimp bait. But female chimpanzees at a site in Senegal, discovered by Jill Preetz and her researchers, that female chimps would hunt, but not just hunt. They would take sticks and they would take off all the leaves, and they would like kind of fashion them into little spears, and they would find points in the tree that were hollow and stab to kill bush babies or golagos, which are a type of primate. So not only were the hunting, they were using tools and doing it by themselves, for their offspring, because it's tough to have to, it's hard out there for a chimp, you don't want to compete with all the other male chimps. But it was just really kind of cool.
They're so cute. I know. Bush babies are so cute.
Same with like red colobus monkeys are really weird looking, but they're cute too. I know it's like birds eating birds. I always get weirded out by that, but yeah.
I think I had heard of that because we have a place south of Shreveport called Chimp Haven, which it used to be open like a few days of the year. I think since COVID, they just don't do like the open days really that much anymore. But I volunteered a couple of times, and one of the little activities that they would let you do is like teaching people about like chimp behaviors and whatnot. And I read that, I was like, oh, they eat red colobus monkeys? What the heck?
High, when they put like the risk factors of death for high colobus or for red colobus, like one of them is just chimps, like, like leopards, this and that. It's just like chimpanzees are a way to go. And I'm like, oh, my poor buddies. They're just like, yeah. And and chimps are terrifying. I mean, like, how was it volunteering there?
It was cool. It's just like, you're kept away. They have like a big, there's like a concrete sort of fence, and then there's like a moat, and then there's the island that's like separated into parts that has the chimps, and then of course like you have the back area where they can interface with the chimps and everything, but with the workers can, not the guests. The guests can only see like our side of things. It was
That's
neat.
so cool.
I only did it a handful of times. It was pretty cool. My sister and I did it before I got a job, but yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, now I get to see fish all the time, so that's also pretty cool.
What's your favorite, I guess, fish or aquatic animal at the aquarium? What should I go check out when I go?
That's tough. Well, my favorite fish, which we don't have any. Well, I mean, we do have one here now. They're cichlids. Cichlids are my favorite fish. We do have some South Americans here. We don't have any African ones anymore, sadly. But I mean, we swapped out. But the I think mud skippers are probably my favorite. Just they're so deeply weird. People see them and they're like, fish on land. That's not right.
It's so weird, yeah.
But yeah, if you ever come down, I'll give you a tour of the Shreveport Aquarium. My wife and I, we went to the Dallas Aquarium not too long ago, and we talked with one of the guys feeding like the giant river otters, and that was super cool. Do you have a favorite primate? What's your favorite?
Oh, well, I feel like I have to say spider monkeys. I mean, I do love spider monkeys. Don't get me wrong. They like oh God, they're so absolutely beautiful. And when I did field work, they were really hard to find because I worked in an area that was highly deforested, and they need big home ranges. So they were heavily affected versus like howler monkeys and capuchins. But gorillas, mountain gorillas, actually Grauer's gorillas was what I did my honors thesis on in not high school. Oh my God. Undergrad. And when I was finishing I was finishing my undergrad, and I was doing EcoCell, was a cell phone recycling company or organization, because one of the biggest problems, or I guess what's the word? This is when my brain starts shutting down and words hard. The biggest factors in deforestation was coltan mining, and because coltan is what is this sort of heat resistant mineral that is found in a lot of cell phones and electronics, and tantalum, coltan. And basically during the tech boom in the late 90s, led to all this, mining. And then the boom busted in 2000. And then people had to eat bush meat and also like kill gorillas and sell their hands as ashtray. I mean, it was real sad stuff. Ugh. But you can't, but this is why conservation needs to be people first. You need to make sure the people are fed, they have healthcare, they're happy, they've got their lives in order. Because if they don't, like, I'm sorry,
Maslow's hierarchy. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Your needs are met, then you can do for others and for animals, right? And so what was happening, that happened then. And then in 2008, kind of the same thing, like boom, 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 like more coltan mining and then bust. So there's been like, they've had cell phone drives and things like that. Also a big problem is charcoal harvesting in Virunga Park. People were going in to cut down trees to burn for their food. And so I was going to go there to teach them how to build compost burning briquettes, which is like a very hippie way to kind of create an alternative to the charcoal harvesting. But in 2008, it got too dangerous, basically imploded sociopolitically in where I would have flown into Goma, which is eastern side of DRC. And so they're like, nope, you are that was a big fly. You are a liability, blonde white lady. Cause you don't, no, last thing they need is to throw money or resources at trying to get somebody out rather than protecting their rangers.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't get to do that. I really wanted to, and that would have brought me to Virunga National Park and working with Gorilla CD. So it wouldn't have been with Grauer's gorillas, but I would have been in the same proximity. And so when it came to grad school, my alma mater, Cal State Northridge, shout out to the Matadors. I don't like that mascot. I'm just going to say that. Not a big fan of Matadors, but moving on. They got a primatologist, Dr. Christina Campbell, the old primatologist who is my undergrad advisor, Dr. Wendy Berkey. I'd love to give shout outs. She studied macaques, but Dr. Christina Campbell studied spider monkeys in Panama. And I said, as long as I can stay in conservation, I'll work with you. And she had just been reached out to by an organization on the Azuero Peninsula, which is the Pacific coast of Panama. And they wanted somebody to do a survey of a critically endangered subspecies of spider monkey. And so I got to do it. And it was, so 2010, the same year we were counting, doing a census, I was counting spider monkeys in trees, falling uphill, falling downhill, falling in love, all the things. It was quite a time. So
that's awesome. That sounds really cool. I that is horrifying to me. That happened to the gorillas. I don't even like seeing gorillas in zoos. And tough. So it's just they're too close to us, in my opinion. Same with chimps, bonobos, orangutans. Watching all of them in captivity, even elephants. I'm like, my favorite animals, but like I'm like,
yeah.
It's always really hard. It's on the one hand, it's like you see them and I'm just like, wow, elephant, so cool. And then I'm sitting there for a few minutes. I'm like, yeah.
If you ever want to go to a sanctuary, my friend actually volunteers at a very ethically run sanctuary in India, in northern India. Like, I mean, it's a schlep. It takes her, she does Doctors Without Borders. So that's like her gift to herself after doing some pretty intense tours. She'll take herself. It's called Elephantastic. It's got a great pun name.
Okay.
But but she goes there every year, and she has one elephant in particular named Pinky that knows her and remembers her. And it's really sweet. Like, she'll go there and bathe her, clean her, spend a lot of time. But it's ethically run. They make sure that nobody is getting too close too soon, and they're all treated very well.
So. Absolutely. I realize it's now 2 hours.
It's late. This is very long.
Sorry, I was thinking like, oh yeah, we'll only go an hour, and then you didn't say anything in fairness, and I was just like, we're just gonna keep rolling.
This has been very nice. I've enjoyed this very much.
We absolutely have to get you in touch with Erica. I sent her.
Yeah.
I think you guys get along great. And Dan, whom we have talked about a couple of times, is in the chat now. So hello, Dan.
Welcome. Hi,
Dan. And so thank you so much for coming on. Stick around for 1 minute after the credits roll. But all right. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you, Peter, for hosting. And then thank you, everybody in the live chat. Sorry, Dan. You have to watch the show back. But we will see all of you next time. So bye, everybody.
Goodbye.